Hi guys, Haze here. I'm an artist and speed painter from Malaysia, and today we're going to talk about doing two eyes. One will be realistic, and the other one will be stylized, like illustration style. So we're just going to explore the differences, and let's jump right into it. So right here, I'm in my Procreate app in iPad, and I've already sketched out my eye. And on the left I have the grayscale reference. So this is the eye that we're painting today. So as usual, I would like to start with the grayscale. So now let me just quickly label this eye. Okay, and here will be stylized. I just felt like I wasted like a few seconds of your life doing this. Haha, who cares? Okay, now we're just gonna jump straight in and color it in. Grayscale. Okay. Okay, let me just get the right tone. Okay. Okay, I'm just gonna color in block in the eyebrow real quick. Okay, and I'm going to use an off black, not total black, but off black, and quickly do the lashes. More of the eyeliner actually, not so much lashes. Okay. Okay, my eyeliner is done. And we're gonna shade in the rest. So I'm gonna dump a base color. Yep, this is good base. So let's just dump it in. Dump it in. I'm on a new layer, yeah, right below the one that I just did. Okay. Okay, I was at tone 3. Let's go a little bit lighter and shade this up with soft color. Oh god, the brush too big. Okay, too small. Okay, just right. Okay. I'm gonna block in the whites, which will be something like that. Okay, now for the inner eye. Yep, this seems like the right value. So I actually uploaded a really long tutorial like last week. It was quite interesting because I was so bored. I had to listen to music when I was doing the tutorial because it was like a massive 2 hour and 45 minutes of painting. And I was listening to Spotify, and then my video got flagged for like 8 copyright claims by YouTube, which is a bummer. So today I'm listening to no copyright music, which is nice to know if you're interested in doing these kind of videos. I'm gonna switch a brush to a normal painting brush that is available in all Procreate. I'm just gonna block in the shading of the eye. And I'm gonna darken this part. If you want to have some tips on doing art on Procreate, you can always check out my other videos. I try to upload like every week, but no promises. I'm so busy. Okay, let's just do a quick blend. And I'm still going to darken this corner here. Okay, blend down a little bit. Okay, so this is my coloring layer, and I have this layer which I blocked in. What I'm gonna do is erase some of the lines. Okay, I'm gonna erase this and all these lines. So what I have here is just the tones. I'm gonna erase that too. So now I'm gonna merge the layers, so everything's on one layer now, and we can now proceed to continue developing the painting using the off black. Okay, I'm just gonna push the paint around a little bit to redefine the highlights below the eye. Okay, soften up this line a little bit. Okay. Soften up the eyebrow. Okay, there we go. Okay, now we can continue redeveloping the tones of the eye, and I'm gonna proceed into details. So I'm gonna skip the brows, but I'm gonna add some creases to the eyelid, moving from one tone to the next. So what I like to do is progressively move up and down the grayscale. I don't jump tones. All these are available in my tips tutorial, which is already in my channel. Okay, so now I have my lines, and I'm gonna work on the tear ducts to get it a little bit more sharp. Okay, gonna add some detail to the eye. Okay, now I'm gonna proceed to some simple highlights. I'm just gonna pick some color and drop in the highlights below the creases. I'm also gonna drop in some shadow right below the creases. Okay. Okay. Remember that the eyeball is round, so it has to look like it's a sphere. So the shadow on the whites are really important, regardless of whether it's realistic or stylized. You gotta show the modeling and get it right. Okay, so now I'm gonna stop right here. Let me just touch up a little bit. Alright, I'm gonna stop right here. Let me just clean up the edges. Okay. And I'm gonna select this and hit duplicate. So now I have two grayscale. I'm gonna merge it down. So what I'm gonna do now is continue working on it in the stylized version. So when it comes to painting something that is stylized, there's a lot of things that we can do to make it look better and prettier. For example, we can sharpen the highlight here by adding some accent lines. We can even exaggerate the highlights. Okay. Now I'm gonna drop in tiny bits of light, but because this is stylized, I don't really have to mind where I place my strokes so much. So I'm just doing it at a random location, but in the general position, you know. So I'm not being like super exact, but I'm just trying to get a general location of it. Okay. And I can also accentuate the creases a lot more, so I'm gonna just burn this. Okay, so I'm gonna drop in the highlights in the tear ducts. Again, I'm not being very exact, I'm just getting the rough positioning and the rough shape of it. Just dropping it in quickly. So here I'm going to add some veins to the eye white. I can also add some highlights in the eye. So right now I'm going a little bit lighter than the actual reference, which is okay because we are stylizing as we go. So this is something that I choose to exaggerate. You can do the same as well. And I can also draw some abstract shapes, which I will not do it now because I like to do it in the color stage. So for the eye lower line, I'm drawing some white lines to represent wetness in the line, and I'm going to clean up this line. Okay, for the lower part, let me check. I'm just gonna leave that for color stage. Yep. So I'm gonna stop here. Let me see. Just gonna burn this line a little bit. Okay, so this is what I have now for stylize. Now I'm gonna go back to the realistic eye. And for this one, do I want to do this? I'm gonna do the brows. So I'm just gonna get a thin line. Oh god, it was not thin. And roughly place the hairs. Okay. I'm gonna quickly draw in the hair. I'm not being very precise here. So we're trying to do a realistic interpretation of the photo, but there are still some creative freedom. So some stray hairs, but as long as you follow the rules within the box, it's fine. So doing this is not difficult, it's just tedious because there are so many hairs. But you gotta follow like the general direction of the hair, which is up here, up here, up here, flowing down, and like that. So it goes like that. As long you're within the directions, you'll be fine. Okay, my hair is drawn, so now I'm just gonna quickly fill it in a little bit for this area. Okay, and I'm gonna fix the smudge. Using the smudge tool, I'm just gonna fix the shape ever so slightly. And now, because this is a realistic rendering, it needs some highlights. Because some of the hairs here, if you can see, they are lighter. Okay, that's good. So this is gonna add volume to the hair because you're not only using one color. Well, if you take an art class, they will tell you that if you do not have anything on your canvas, you wouldn't be able to paint. It's like a chicken and egg problem because everything is relative to each other. Like once you put the first color down, you'll be able to do the next color and the next. So it's the same with tonal values. Like for example, right now, the lines I'm drawing is lighter here, but once you get out, you see it's a lot darker here. Compared to when I paint it here, it's a lot lighter because it's actually relative to where it is at, which is why I recommend that you increase your values when you're painting step by step. Do not underestimate the power of tonal values when you paint because it's actually very important to get a realistic rendering. So right now I'm just drawing some highlights that's even lighter than the lines that I was doing before, right on the lines that I just drew just now, to give like a light catching effect. So as you can see, it's starting to come together. So if you look at the reference and my painting, you can tell that mine is a lot sharper, definitely, because it's more high res, right? The one that I'm painting, but it is still within the realm of realism. So okay, so for this part, the sparse area, there's some highlights here that you can do to pick it out. So you don't really have to like go all pointillism when you're doing realism. Instead, you can choose to express your textures in terms of brushstrokes. Okay, and there's a stray. Okay, fix the smudge a little bit. Okay, so all good. Now we're gonna go and proceed to lines. So I'm just gonna pick this color here, and using that I'm just gonna draw some fine lines. I need a bigger brush. Okay, it was too sharp because there are a lot of like tiny wrinkles around the eye. So just be careful with like the pressure of the stroke when you're doing this. Then now that I have my let me show you all these lines here. I'm gonna throw a highlight above it, so just a little bit, because that's what's happening in the reference photo. And as usual, we can express our understanding of the texture in terms of brush strokes. You can use whatever brush strokes you like, or you can even use brushes or textures if you have them. Doesn't really matter. So I'm just expressing them in short brush strokes. Short brush strokes to create a texture of skin. But because everything is so subtle that if you don't draw it, you can still pass as a nice painting, but it just won't look realistic. So realism is about taking the extra time to notice all these little details, all the lines, the textures. It's mostly just the textures that are missing from illustrations. Once the right texture is added in, it's gonna look a lot more like realism. As usual, when you do a dark line, you need to complement it with a highlight either above or below, depending on the reference. And some lines have gradients to them, so if you can express that, you can achieve realism easier. So where there's shadow, there's light. Where there's darkness, there's light. So if you see from far, there's already some sort of a texture going on, and we're just gonna proceed with adding all these textures in. So for me personally, I'm not a fan of realism, simply because there is actually two schools of thought when it comes to doing art. You can either overcomplicate things, which is realism, or have an exercise of simplifying things. So I'm the simplifying kind. And if I'm painting something and it looks so realistic, might as well just use the damn photo, right? There's no point in painting it. I mean, it's just like to me, it's just like it's too much patience, and it just shows that you have patience, and it's nothing to do with skill. I'm not trying to offend anyone here, but just my 2 cents. I will never be a realism artist simply because I don't have the patience for it, and that is something that I lack. But that is not my weakness as well, because it's just who I am. So you gotta find out if you are the kind that simplifies or complicate things. And then once you've decided which kind of artist you are, you'll be in a lot less pain. Okay, I'm gonna switch to the sparkle brush. Forget it, I'm just gonna draw it all in. I'm drawing in the in-between highlights, the sparkles, simply because it's realism. I think someone who is very patient would actually, zoom in and slowly express everything with dots. But what I'm trying to explain here today is to show you how you can do a realism approach simply by using an understanding of the texture and how to express it using lines or using brush strokes. At the end of the day, the painting is all made of dots or lines or marks. So once you figure out the mark that you want to go for, it gets a lot easier. Okay, I'm gonna burn the edges of the eye. That's my burn tool. Okay, I'm gonna move to the inner eye. So okay, realism. For realism, even if you don't see it in the photo, there's a few things you have to understand. The eye catches reflection from the lashes, so there is actually um, lashes that reflects on to the iris, which you can draw. So it usually looks like this. And because this is realism, it's a lot subtle, a lot more subtle, so I'm just going to use a soft brush instead to do the shading of the eye. I'm just going to use a dodge tool. Quicker that way. Okay, as usual, we're just going to use lines to express textures that we see. So if you can nail this grayscale painting, when you dump in your color, it will be a lot easier for you to achieve realism, which is why oil painters, the traditional kind, they all start with a underpainting of tonal values first, whether if it's in black and white or green or brown. So it's actually to help them sort out the values first before doing anything else. Okay. Lines are so soft. Okay, let's move on to the edges of the eye. So what I'm talking about is this edge right here. So for the stylized one, it can stay like this, no problem. But for realism, it's gotta be softer because it's not a harsh line. So you gotta soften it up. And be mindful of tiny tonal changes. Be mindful whether the edges are hard or soft. If it's soft, it's to be blended, but if it's hard, it's not supposed to be blended. Okay, just going to draw the veins of the eye, and I'm very mindful of the tonal values that's on the actual photo so that I don't accidentally draw it too dark or light. And for realism, your brush marks have to be very exact, so it's so much easier when I'm using a brush in real life. I can't rotate the brush digitally. As long as the tonal value is correct and the brush mark is appropriate, you'll be able to achieve realism. Okay, moving on to the lower lash line. Gonna be really anal about the correct tonal value. If it's too dark, too light, soft edges, hard edges, which one is it, which one to use. Okay, let's talk about lashes. Usually the lashes that cast the shadows are the one at the bottom. So I'm just gonna pull and blend some shadows out for the realism one. You can do this for the stylized one as well. So, okay. Now I'm gonna move forward to the skin right at the bottom of the eye. So this is a part that has a lot of wrinkles as well. So, but I don't think you can see on the photo. Neither can I. But it exists. It's mostly flowing in this direction. So just adding some lines. So there's, as like I said, there's always two stages in adding these kind of lines. There's the shadow stage and there's always the light that appears. So right now I added my shadow stage, and if I zoom out it just looks odd. But if I also dump in the highlights, it will look a lot more reasonable. You can't express light without shadow, or the other way around. So this is a concept that has to be understood. Okay, so this is what I have for the realistic one, and the stylized one to the right is a lot simpler, and tonal values are not that accurate, but we are ready to move on to the next stage and see what happens. So I'm just gonna swap to the colored photo, and right now we're gonna work on the stylized. So for the stylized, I'm just gonna simply dump in a color using the saturation brush. Okay, just a flat wash for now. So right now I'm assessing the tones again. Do I need to go red or yellow or gray? But I can control the grayness because what if I press harder, it goes more saturated. Can you see it? So I've already controlled the grayness of it, so I just need to work on the right color without worrying about the values anymore. So right now, based on the first color that I just put in, I need to go more yellow. So like I said before, everything is relative. You won't know if it's the correct color until you dump a color in, whichever color. So right now I'm just gonna go yellow and fix. It's not yellow enough, so even more yellow. Yeah, this is yellow enough. I'm just adjusting it to be more yellow. I'm only concerned with getting the right colors and nothing else. So the below the eye is a lot grayer and red. So let's just adjust that. It's more like a purple. Okay, let's move on to the brown. Just gonna give it like a neutral maroon gray color and reflect that onto the eyeshadow as well. So now I can clearly see that the tear ducts has been eyeliner. Just draw the photo. The tear duct is purple, which is probably drawn on. Okay, now I'm just gonna do the eyeshadow. Now on to the eyes. It's red in the center and then yellow and green on the outer edges. So okay, and now I'm just gonna give a good base for the lower eyelids makeup, which is yellow. So this is yellow and I'm just coloring it on. Okay, I think the color is correct already. So there's nothing much left to do when it comes to color, I guess, for this stylized one. Okay, now we're gonna move on towards the go ahead for the realistic version. I'm gonna clean up the lines again. We're gonna do the color for the realistic version right now. Clean up. Okay. So, same thing. Dump in a color. Don't be afraid. Oh god, I forgot something. Okay, let's head back to the stylized one for a bit. I forgot to color in the tear ducts and the eye white. So tear ducts done. Eye white, some off blue. I usually pick blue so that it looks brighter. and zoom in, get the tear, get the veins the correct color. Okay, jump back into the realistic one. Oh god, I know what happened. Okay, we gotta undo a little bit. Okay. I was in burn mode. My bad. So I was wondering, like, why is my veins darker? Okay, let's do the veins again. So if you're in saturation mode, you are just changing the color, you're not changing the values, which is what we want. And we gotta redo the realistic one because just now I was on burnt mode. I was wondering why is the color like so off, like the values were changing. Okay, anyway, flat it out. It changes the color but not the value. I'm just gonna turn on alpha mode. I'm tired of erasing. So what alpha mode does is you are only allowed to paint within the areas that have been painted before. The way to turn it on is to hold your screen with one finger and press alpha lock. And now let's do the yellow. It's not yellow enough. Okay, this should be yellow enough. Dodge it a bit. So because this is realistic, you gotta take extra care with the colors here. But if you notice, whichever color I put, both versions looks pretty realistic, and that is because the tonal values are correct. So if your tonal values are off, there's no way in hell that your color stage is going to be realistic. Tonal values first, colors second. Okay, the tear ducts is actually a bit brownish instead of pink, so I'm gonna stay faithful to the photo. And the whites are actually a bit greenish, so a bit closer to teal. I'm just spending a lot more time here because I want to get the colors correct and the values correct. Okay, let's head to the brow. So it's a bit grayer at the thicker parts and brown at the sparse area because she applied eyebrow shadow, and we can reflect that. So grayer here. Okay, so I'm gonna redo everything and make sure the gray areas are supposed to be gray, that the gray area that are supposed to be gray will be gray. Okay, I'm just gonna use a blue and dodge. So, pretty close. So the good thing about doing digital painting is that you can dump in textures. And of course you can't do this in real life. So I'm dumping in textures of skin. Okay, so if you can see, take a look right now between these two, they are pretty similar. But now we're gonna go into the final effects. So let's move back to Stylized, and I'm just gonna pick a random color. We're gonna do the eyebrows, but we don't have to be so detailed this time. So I'm actually using a thicker brush. So what I'm trying to express is eyebrows, but more bold, less refined, more painterly, but still following the same direction. So as you can see, I'm working a lot faster compared to the other side. because I've been doing portraits for a long time and I roughly know the features, and I know that once you nail certain features, most of the other things can be negotiated. First rule of all, the eyebrows directions. Okay, you're gonna draw some stray hairs. Am I using the correct brush? Okay, correct. Okay, throw in some highlights, like the opposite side, but again, don't have to be very precise, just expressing the idea that I know that there are highlights, and that's enough to move us forward. Okay, so I'm deepening the creases here. More of like a creative decision to do so, because I can. But I'm still following the rules and I'm doing it, drawing this over my previous lines so that I don't lose the shading. And I'm gonna darken the lower lash line for a more intense effect. So right now I'm just gonna do the eye, the reflections of the lashes, and for the fun part, I'm gonna use a really saturated color to do some funky highlights. If you study like a few eyes and you do a few tries with them, like you just draw them for fun, then you'll be able to get a rough pattern of where the highlights occur. Then you can do that. You can do this like freehand and then like imagine and improv next time. Okay, so now I have the highlights. I need it to glow. So to make it glow, I'm going to pick the color next to it, which is blue. And I'm going to, what is it called? Dodge it. Dodge it. So it's glowing. So from far, you look like it's glowing. And now we're going to put in the final highlights. So in the photo, the ring light is right in the center because she's using a ring light and it's right smack in the center of her eye, which is unattractive. So we're going to shift that. We're going to shift that to the side. As usual, gonna dodge with the color next to it. And dump in white right in the center, like this. And because this is stylized, I can also do highlights that connect the whole eye, as if the whole eye is shimmering. Shimmering, not shimmering, as if the whole eye is glossy. Ah, it's a bit too high. And I'm using the wrong brush, so let's swap brushes. Yep, this is... I'm gonna go what am I trying to say? Flat black. God. And darken the center of the eye. Okay, there we go. Okay, now I'm gonna swap to all the textures. Glitter. Yellow glitter. Yellow, not black. So I'm not so concerned about whether they are too saturated or not, or the wrong color. I'm basically doing whatever the hell I want and just throwing in the glitter, packing a punch. But if I sense the color changing, like from now it's like light yellow, I can see that it's changing to a light pink, I would do so. So I'm transitioning to the light pinks now, and I'm gonna slowly move towards another color so that it's more three-dimensional. When it comes to glitter, I need to use a few. Okay, for the lower glitter, I'm gonna push the color a bit to green. Green is right next to yellow, so it's fine. So if the color of the glitter is yellow, you should use yellow, green, and yellow, red, yellow, orange to get the effect that you want. Okay, some bigger speckles, and it's pretty fast. Now we're gonna finally move to the lashes. I'm just gonna use jet black, the darkest black, and I'm not too concerned about thickness of the lashes. In fact, the thicker the better, because less strokes to draw, more impactful, more bold, more confident. As long as the directions are correct, the general thickness, the volume is there, then it's fine. I'm not being very picky about everything else. Real quick and easy, super quick and easy. For the lower lash line, gotta dial down the thickness, make sure it's positioned correctly. But as usual, not very concerned with getting an exact representation of the photo. Just the conceptualization of the idea that I understand is good enough. And then some faint lines. Okay. So at this point, when I'm done doing this, I usually assess the drawing and see what I can improve on. So I feel like I can improve on making the eye a lot wetter than it is. So I'm adding water lines, and also I'm concerned with the highlights in the tear ducts. I'm restating the highlights, and now I am restating in between the lash lines, which is important. Just a little bit, not too much. When it's too much, it's overdone. So the stylized one is pretty done, but I'm not very happy with the color of the eyeshadow, so I could change it. And I think that the lower eyeshadow should be a lot more prominent, so I'm just gonna increase the saturation, make it a lot more pop. Okay, so I stop when I'm happy, and let's just say that for the sake of this tutorial, I'm happy. So now we can go back to the realistic one. I'm happy with the stylized one already, so let's just keep it at that. For the realistic one, I think we can still use the glitters on the lower lash line, but we gotta be really careful with the choice of colors here. I see some blues. I see trees of green, blues, some here. Okay, now I have my glitter already, but the positioning needs to be a lot more precise, so I'm just gonna draw some of them in. Also, I noticed that some of them are outlined, so let's just do that. It's just a matter of observing and drawing what I see at this point, and don't just slap on like effects without thinking about light and shadow. So now, because I slap on the effects, I have to think about their light and shadow and consider all aspects of it. Okay, and also there are some faint brown lines. I'm gonna go ahead and do the eye first, because the eye is not very impressive. So okay, so for the highlight, just plain white. Make sure it's soft enough, the edges, and then every mark is the correct shape. There's a faint blue halo around the highlight, which needs to be addressed. There's also a blue halo around the iris, which also needs to be addressed. And some faint reflections are visible through the lashes, so I'm gonna draw it now. I'm gonna selectively try and put in some glitter on the top lid, just to save time. But I know the bulk of my work is still going to be hand drawn. Okay, that's good enough. So I'm gonna do the lashes now. Lashes gotta be black. Do I want to use black? Black it is. So now it's a lot finer, and I'm really looking at the reference to make sure that the placement are correct, the thickness are correct. It's not difficult, just tedious. So I'm not exaggerating anything. I'm being very naturalistic when it comes to expressing the features, expressing them just as they are. Now I've increased the thickness of the brush stroke and add on some thicker hairs. Okay, gonna do the same but for the lower lash line, but I'm gonna use a lighter gray and be really careful of where I'm putting my lashes. This is lighter gray, so it's not that dramatic. And I'm also looking at the previous shadows for the lashes that I've already put in. So the last one here is a bit thicker and lighter. I'm gonna switch to darker gray and drop in the darker parts of the hair, basically where the mascara clumps together. Well, the good thing is if you can draw this, you'll be able to do makeup. Same thing. Okay, and the shadows at the roots. So now we need to add, okay, so basically like the elements are there, right? But it still needs work to make it look realistic. So time to start nitpicking details. Like for example, there's some highlights here that you can add. I'm not using as much special effects brushes for the realistic version because they're just not precise enough, because everything is all randomly placed, the special effects brushes. So gotta do it manually. Oops, one by one. Even the highlights for the upper lashes, it's gotta be manual. And because it's realism, so everything is a lot more subtle. I'm pushing tones around. If you're wondering why I did not do this before the lashes, that's because I think that it's easier to do this after the lashes because you can get a sense of how everything looks already. So I'm basically observing the highlights and placing them. Gonna dump in more textures for the skin in the right color. I don't think using textures are cheating because, well, you can't do this when you're doing traditional, so you might as well use it while you can. Because in traditional, it's just you have to paint everything. You have to paint all textures by hand. No brushes to help you. And I'm looking for a blurring brush. Let's see. Doesn't look like there's any. Gaussian blur. Anyway, I'm gonna merge first. Duplicate. Select this one. I'm gonna blur some of it. Okay, just blur. Okay, it's blur. I have a blur copy now, and I'm gonna erase areas that I feel that need sharpness. So I'm erasing areas of the blur layer to to reveal sharp layers, to reveal sharp features of the layers underneath. Because photography has a depth of field effect, so using the blur filter only makes sense. Also, it's a quick way to soften some details. So I'm just erasing the tips of the lashes, keeping the rest a little bit more blur. So let me show you what it looks like without the blur. So without the blur it's like this, and with the blur it's like this. It's again sharp, and blur is like this, so it's a lot more realistic. So I'm gonna do another merge. Okay, merge down. Last thing that we can do, head into touch-ups. There's gonna be a noise brush because all photos have noise and ISO, so after putting in a noise we will be able to express the photography quality a lot more. I'm just selectively applying this noise brush. Okay, so here we go. The end of this tutorial. So I hope you enjoy this tutorial. I certainly prefer the stylized one because there's a lot more things that we can do, a lot more fun, and it's up to your own creativity how you want to stylize it. But if your goal is realism, so I hope that I can give you enough pointers for you to move forward. I mean, if you want it to look even better than what I did now, all you gotta do is just keep working, right? And just keep refining and refining and refining. Don't add too much highlights, mind your values and things like that. So that's all for today. Thank you so much for watching, and I guess I'll see you guys next time, hopefully with my face. Bye.